It's called soccer now.
It is called soccer now.
Not only, out here, World Cup season, I've never paid attention to soccer a day in my life. I did play soccer for 7 years when I was in elementary school.
Okay.
But I scored 1 goal. I was very bad at it.
Well, it doesn't really matter if you were bad back then because
it's called soccer now.
Your country
exactly
got a tie, at least.
There had to have been a butterfly effect from that to the U.S. men's national team playing in the World Cup and tying with England. Imagine if England came over here and they got an actual football team, like a football, pure blood American football team,
Actual
and they
football
came
team.
and tied with like the Seahawks.
That would be crazy.
0-0, nothing happened on the field.
They would say they would get to do whatever they want. They would get dunk on us however they want.
I'd have to eat beans and toast.
They would have been if that happened. They'd be getting back at us for the Boston Tea Party or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Times like this remind me no more than any other time that sports are just a arena for more culture war for right-wing people. Because all they have been talking about, at least all I've seen them talking about, like outside of Americans dunking on the Brits for,
which
winning
is hard.
0-0.
That's cool.
The only thing I've seen them talk about is how the American team and I think some other teams wore pride flags on their uniforms to protest Qatar and their treatment of human rights abuses and just general, hatred towards LGBTQ people in general. They've just been mauling over the fact that Americans are wearing pride flags to be inclusive. Like, you would think that if we are going to another country in any kind of event, but especially a sporting event, when so many people are going to see it, we'd want to rep the fact that our country is quote-unquote free.
Yeah.
The fact that, we have freedom and inclusivity and you can do whatever you want in our country. But when we actually go and do that and we actually hold deep or hold close to our heart the values that we proclaim back at home, freedom and that kind of thing, they get mad about it. They just grift more culture war things about it. It's just so annoying.
Like there are reports that like fans who have like pride gear merchandise are being harassed by the police at Qatar and the guards at the stadium. There are also reports that, well, not reports, it's just a fact. I can't remember which team it is. I don't watch soccer, but one of the teams has to redesign their uniform because there was, I think, a rainbow on the inside of it.
That's crazy.
Or there was like rainbow detailing on it. There have been a bunch of like issues with teams wearing rainbow flags, with just anything supporting LGBTQ in Qatar because they don't fuck with gay people in Qatar. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. They're very homophobic over there. And it's interesting because two of the main things that they needed to do to in agreement with FIFA to be able to host the World Cup this year was sell beer, which I guess they don't fuck with in Qatar, and just allow LGBTQ shit. And they lost a $75 million or $175 million or $750 million Budweiser sponsorship. Something crazy. Like they lost a huge sponsorship with Budweiser because they just went behind FIFA's back, didn't sell beer. And they're just being homophobic, which is very, very bad.
And it's like there's also the fact that the stadiums that they've been using in Qatar were built by basically slave labor. It's labor from migrant workers that they pay basically nothing or actually nothing to build these stadiums and do other kind of work around Qatar cities and stuff like that. There's also that problem. And I don't know the full process that FIFA goes through for, figuring out what venues their games are going to be held at. But I got to believe that they are complicit somehow in choosing to go to Qatar.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you didn't have to do that.
Sure.
You didn't, like, I don't know the process for choosing the location of the World Cup or anything like that. You don't have to, though.
No.
You really don't. But choosing to go to countries with human rights abuses that is known to just be awful towards already marginalized groups, like, you don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to choose to host a World Cup at a country that's violently anti-LGBTQ. Put it in Germany or some shit.
Exactly. And
Put
it's
it
like,
in Germany.
You would think that like the right wing would support the choice to go to Qatar. And I honestly, I haven't even really seen them pushing back against the choice to go to Qatar.
The only shit that I've seen, I haven't seen them pushing back against that choice, but I've just seen them pushing back against people saying it's kind of bullshit that they're not letting people wear rainbows and they're making teams redesign things and doing all this. I've seen them say, well, it's their culture. You have to respect it.
Fuck that.
No, I don't.
Fuck that.
No, I don't. That's bad culture.
Yeah.
I'll fucking say it right here. That's bad culture.
I don't care if it's religiously based or based in any other belief system that you hold close. I don't care.
Yeah.
You don't get to have a belief system. You don't get to have quote unquote values that discriminate against people, especially when you are a country.
That's a bad aspect of the culture.
I don't care.
It should be uncontroversial to say that.
Yeah.
Homophobia is bad. Being anti-LGBTQ is bad.
Yeah.
Like, I will not respect any of that. Why would I respect people who do not respect other people's rights to live?
Exactly. It's bad culture.
It's fucking stupid.
And we get to say that. I don't care.
And then I've obviously seen the classic, keep politics off games. Just enjoy the games. Keep the politics out of soccer.
Oh, my God.
I know. Ridiculous.
I mean, we hear this anytime there's some kind of political activism that happens during sports games, but sports games, or every single sport, everything really, but sports specifically is inherently political because the question of who gets included is a political question.
The question of where we put the stadium that's going to host the World Cup that only comes every couple years is political. You can't take politics out of anything.
Exactly, especially when you have players from America or even from other countries that are protesting the human rights abuses of the country where the games are being held in. That is a political thing to do. Or just showing up to the games based on where the games are being held is a political decision.
Being gay and playing soccer in Qatar is political.
Exactly.
You can't separate it from that.
Exactly.
You can't. You can't just stop being gay for a week.
And it's so crazy to see the right-wing media, and I guess it's kind of the theme of the episode, but to see the right-wing media getting so angry that Americans are wearing pride flags on their uniforms when they would get just as mad if Americans didn't show up and protest anyways.
Yeah, because that'd be unpatriotic.
Exactly. Like, imagine if the American soccer, like, they just didn't show up, they didn't compete because they were like, we are protesting the human rights abuses of this country. They would get mad just the same. You can't win in that situation.
Look at all these entitled soccer players thinking that they just can't show up to represent their country in this country. Just keep the politics out of my game. Just play the damn game. You get paid millions of dollars anyway.
The logical conclusion at that point is play the game and just don't acknowledge the human rights abuses. Don't acknowledge how much they hate gay people.
Be my entertainment.
Exactly. The point there is just completely ignore all of the bad things that Qatar has done and continues to do and just play.
Yeah.
And just go along with it because that's what they want fundamentally.
Just give Qatar this immense boost to their economy.
Yeah.
Because whenever someone hosts something like this, they get a huge boost. Whenever a country hosts the Olympics, huge boost to the economy, huge boost to the businesses in the region. Like, it's very much an economic decision as much as it is a political decision.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Crazy. They're just a bunch of snowflakes, if you ask me.
That's right.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. We have quite the show prepared for you today. We got to talk about some gun violence, multiple instances of gun violence.
True.
So trigger warning for that if you're susceptible to that kind of thing. We also got to talk about Donald Trump dining with some Nazis.
Crazy.
That's a crazy story to come out of this week.
A wild that was not on my bingo card. That was not on my 2022 bingo card.
Not on my Thanksgiving week bingo card. Honestly, pretty bad Thanksgiving week for politics, I will say. But before we get into the episode, I'll remind you all, as I always do, I'm tired of this at this point. Having to remind you all every single episode.
Getting on my knees and begging.
Fundamentally.
The way you make me degrade myself every week for asking for these reviews, these crumbs that you could give out for free.
If you like the show, if you enjoy the content that we make, if you want us to continue, then all you got to do is go check out headintheoffice.com. Take a look at the one merch item we have on offer right now because the other ones are unavailable. Go to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Just give us a look. Check us out on our social medias, all that.
I know a couple of you watch this with your partners, or you play it out loud while you're with your partner to try to get them into it. Why don't you maybe, get them a Hiddo shirt for Christmas?
Exactly. A perfect Christmas option. Perfect Christmas option. Have them subscribe to the YouTube and just have them check out all of our content. Have you and your family and everyone check out all your content.
Holy shit, look at this immaculate drip. Thank you so much, partner. I'm going to have to check these guys out.
It's giving season after all.
It is the season of giving.
It's the season of giving, and we got the hookup for you all. But another thing you can do if you want to support the show, as always, is leave a 5-star review on Apple.
That's right.
And we got one to read off today. If you leave us a review.
One singular review.
If you leave us a review, Apple, 5 stars, write us a little prose paragraph. We'll read it on the show, and we'll share it with everybody. Give you a little shout out. Say thank you for all of the hard work you put in to support the show.
Hopefully it makes it through. Apple. Apparently there have been issues with people's reviews not coming through.
Yeah, some people have been saying that the reviews just never come through. We can't really do anything about that.
I don't know what to do. Maybe DM us a review
because we don't get a message or an email or anything like that when you leave a review. We literally just read them off of what's visible publicly.
Yeah.
So if that's not happening, just send us a message. Let us know you reviewed, and we'll read it then.
Exactly. Send us a DM on Instagram.
On Patreon.
While you're at it, follow us on Instagram
and become a patron. Get access to early episodes.
That's true.
Exactly. But the one review we got to read today, subject line is S-Class Pod by Brian. They say, undeniably, the #1 geopolitical podcast in the world. Jeremy and Gage always do an excellent job at reporting and analyzing news events, holding those in power accountable, and actively trying to improve the country for everyone. There's never a dull moment listening to the pod, and I always end the pod galvanized to fight for change and improve the lives of my community. I'm glad it's not too doomer.
That's right.
Because sometimes we cover some pretty doomer topics. We talk pretty cynically about what's happening in politics. So I'm glad that you are invigorated and excited to, make change.
I'm glad someone feels hopeful after we record.
Yeah.
Because it's not me.
I was going to say, yeah, it's definitely not me that feels hopeful after we're done recording the pod. But we got to get started. And as I said before, trigger warning for gun violence and also just like generally violence against marginalized groups, because that's the big chunk of the show today. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to be talking about because as you may have heard by now, as many people probably heard by now, there was a school shooting, or not a school shooting. I'm so sorry. That's just America brain. There was a shooting at a club in Colorado Springs last Saturday called Club Q. Club Q is famous for LGBTQ inclusion in the community and was until recently the only club in the city of Colorado Springs. And then I think there's been some more recently that have popped up. But this is a club famous and known for being inclusive to
been there for
everybody.
21 years.
Yeah.
Was a, quote, safe space for members of the LGBTQ community.
That's right. And then last week on November 19th, there was a shooter that came in, killed 5 people and injured, I believe, 25 in total with an AR-style rifle. And the shooter was stopped by Club Q patrons, and we'll talk specifically about the person who stopped him a little bit later, but just to give you a brief overview, his name was Robert Fierro, and a drag queen also helped Robert Fierro take down the shooter, and the shooter was eventually stopped before more people could be harmed, but in all, 5 people were killed tragically, and there's been so much to talk about in regards to the shooting. There's so many details that have come out, there's so much discourse around it, so much blaming, and we got to dive into all of it and give you the definitive take on this the horrible tragedy.
The media response has been fucking ludicrous.
It's unacceptable.
Absolutely putrid.
So the shooter's name is Anderson Lee Aldrich, and the attorneys are saying right now that Aldrich is a non-binary person and goes by they, them pronouns. Now, it's unclear if this is true. It may just be the case that they, and we will refer to them as they, just because we don't know. We don't fully know if they're actually a non-binary person, and we're going to be respectful ultimately, even though this person is fucking evil for what they did. We don't know if they are actually non-binary or if they're just using if they're just saying that they're non-binary to get away from hate crime charges, because that's what this is being investigated as.
Yeah, and there's no prior evidence from what people are saying, what reporters are saying. There's no prior evidence that they'd ever gone as non-binary. Only evidence to the contrary.
Yes.
But there's no way of knowing.
And I have a quote from CNN here. This is from the shooter's neighbor. They said, quote, Xavier Krause, a neighbor of the accused shooter, said that he and his girlfriend lived across the hall from Eldridge and their mother until September. Krause said they mostly played video games together, often in Eldridge's apartment. Eldridge would occasionally express hateful attitudes towards people, Krause recalled. Krause said he specifically remembered one time, quote, Aldrich vocalized verbally that they, quote, did not like / hated the gays, using a derogatory term for them. He added that many other outbursts were racial. Aldrich was not someone I would have around my gay friends, Krause said. He said that the alleged shooter never mentioned that they were non-binary. Yeah, so here we have evidence to suggest that the shooter is in fact not non-binary and they're just using it.
Why is he someone you'd have around you?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have around your gay friends. You recognize he's saying all these things. From the looks of it, if he's bringing this up in like a CNN video, this isn't typical Modern Warfare 2 lobby talk, which is already vile and abhorrent, by the way. It seems a little elevated.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the case, but I think that we also have to remember that not everyone is like politic-brained, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And while we may just morally object to being around people that are hateful, some people, they grow up around hateful uncles, hateful parents, people that are generally bigoted, but they don't think much of it because that's the life they grow up with.
Some people genuinely think that this is, it's just gamer culture.
Yeah.
Like, it's completely acceptable to just hear slurs.
Well, it's either that or
the lobbies.
It's either that or it's the people that are like, well, we respect everyone's opinion. It's a little weird. I wouldn't have my gay friends around them, but like, that's just kind of how people are.
That's him. He's harmless.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And then from CBS 8, and this was unbelievable to me.
Okay.
This was a crazy piece of the story that I don't even know if I believe this today, even though it's being widely reported.
Okay.
It says, quote, the 22-year-old suspect, Anderson Lee Aldrich, accused of opening fire with a semi-automatic rifle inside an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs, killing 5 people and leaving 25 injured, is grandson of outgoing Republican California Assemblyman Randy Vopel.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
That's absolutely wild.
It's almost too wild to believe.
No, yeah. When that first came out, I thought that it was fake.
Right. So did I.
This guy's family history is it's something.
Yeah.
It's something. His dad was like a failed MMA fighter turned porn star.
Yes.
He had to change his name when he was 15 to get away from his dad because he was being harassed online because his dad was a porn star.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. Like, nobody deserves that.
His dad was he went through a divorce with his biological mother.
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, on TV.
On TV.
And then there was a recent video that came out of the dad being interviewed, and the dad was basically like, he was high out of his mind.
There were like 3 videos
of
him being interviewed, and he said the same thing in like each one.
Okay. He was saying, I'm a conservative Republican, and when he heard that his son like did a shooting, or like was at Club Q,
yeah,
he was like worried. He's like, oh, well, I'm a Mormon and we don't do any of that gay stuff. Like, we're not gay in the Mormon church.
He said,
and then he heard that his son did a shooting there, and he was like, oh, well, at least he's not gay.
He said, oh, I was really worried when I heard that my son was at the gay club. I thought that he was gay, but I was like, oh, at least he's not gay now.
Yeah, at least he's not. That's a crazy take, man. I feel like I mean, even if you are super religious, like in the hierarchy of immoral things, I feel like killing someone would be higher. No,
oh, real.
You would think?
Keeping in vein with that, the wildest, most putrid, most ludicrous, most insane, most mind-numbingly bad take that I heard this week was some Christian lady, and she said something to the likes of, everyone's talking about how these people were killed and their bodies were harmed, but nobody's talking about the harm that was done to their souls while they burn in hell in eternal damnation.
That's a crazy fucking
for being
take.
At the gay club. Come on.
And we're going to certainly get into this in a little bit about the right-wing media's response and how, their culpability and all of it. But just to see that kind of response, and that's not really a crazy take when compared to every other take from, basic right-wingers, basic Republican voters in this country. Yeah. So many of them are saying that, this kind of violence is bad, but, they're grooming kids. They had it coming.
Kids, you got to stop the grooming. When's this violence going to end?
Yeah, no, it's really bad. The shooter also had confrontations with the police before. About a year ago, he threatened his mother with a homemade bomb, and then the police arrived to arrest him, and it's unclear if he bought the gun that he used at the shooting prior to this incident. A lot of people are speculating he bought it after and then used it in the club despite being arrested, so background checks failed as they always do in this country.
I think it was largely because the state didn't pursue charges with his original case, which is kind of fucking insane.
Yeah, okay, so the state didn't pursue charges, right? He was arrested, he was charged by the police, so the cops did their job with this one. But then the DA's office never prosecuted him.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence for this, but it's got me thinking, he's the grandson of a California Assembly member, a Republican California Assembly member, and the DA never presses charges on him. That seems weird.
That's kind of
wild. He threatened his mother with a bomb. You would think that that's something that you at least, get put on some list so you can't buy weapons.
It's got to be something because I think I read somewhere that there was never actually a bomb. It was just a threat. But still, you can't just be doing that.
You're threatening violence. There's got to be something there.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just seems a little bit sus to me.
A little
I don't really
sussy.
There's not a ton of evidence to suggest that his grandfather got him out of being prosecuted. But it just seems at every step of the way we again fail to address concern, on an individual level, we fail to address concerns for individuals that seemingly pose a risk to other people around them. And then a year later, they go and do something awful that could have been prevented.
Because it's even though I don't think they found an actual bomb, he did have an hours-long standoff with the police.
Yeah.
There's violence there, and there's an established history of violence.
Yeah,
there's sane people don't do that. Right. I would never threaten my mother with a bomb.
And he was there might not have been a bomb, but he was threatening if you come in here, I'm blowing the entire house up.
Yeah.
Sane people don't do this kind of thing. That should get you put on a list so you can't buy a weapon or own a weapon. That, I don't know. That seems like such a simple argument to make, but it's just not. It's so foreign in this country because we rarely ever do anything to regulate weapons, which is, of course, a piece of the story.
What's the point of having these red flag laws if time after time the use of them is just ignored? Individual judges in Colorado, I believe, can just see that a individual has a history of violence and based purely off of that can take them off, put them on a list that makes it not able to buy guns. Yeah. What's the point of having these laws? There is a point to having these laws, but if they're not being used, people are refusing to use them. It's just like the fucking evil motherfucker that did Parkland.
Yeah, exactly. Having these laws is good, of course, but they mean nothing if they're not enforced.
Yeah,
and if they're not utilized. The laws and the rules that we have in our country are only as good as their enforcement mechanisms are. Mm-hmm. And if we have them on the books that we can do certain things, but we never use them, then of course these things are going to happen. And I haven't even really seen the conversation around this event specifically, this shooting specifically, be one of gun control. Yeah. I haven't really seen anyone calling for more gun reform. A lot of it's been focused on the right wing's culpability, which of course that's a piece of the puzzle.
Major.
But I've seen nobody really talk about how guns play into this. And I don't know if that's like a good or a bad thing at this point. I don't know if people have just given up.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing to see.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, because we did get that gun reform bill a couple of months ago out of Congress, which was lackluster for many reasons, but I guess it's still a step in the right direction, as we talked about. But just to see absolutely nobody talking about the regulation of weapons after a shooting that, targets marginalized groups, definitely motivated by hate. I don't know. It's a little bit worrisome.
A little bit. Just eensy bit. I just feel like after such marginal gains, after Uvalde, come on. Like, I don't think anything else is going to be able to push us over the edge. Yeah. I don't think any individual instance of gun violence is going to be able to push us over the edge if an elementary school couldn't.
Right, exactly.
Like, come on.
Like in Uvalde, we have, 19 children die.
Hits all the heartstrings.
19 children die. Cops do absolutely nothing to prevent it. And still we get basically nothing in terms of reform.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if that's not the thing that does it, then it's certainly not going to be the death of people from a marginalized group that half the politicians in Congress don't fucking care about.
Because it's textbook villain shit.
Yeah.
It's textbook villain shit compared to people that is demonized to half the country.
Right. Because like Republican Congress members, maybe not every single one of them, but most of them at this point have just openly stated their hatred for gay people.
Yeah.
And if it's not, innocent children that they claim to want to protect, that is going to motivate them, the death of those innocent children, if that's not going to motivate them to do gun control, then protecting people that they don't give a fuck about isn't going to motivate them.
That they don't like, that they think are going to burn in hell.
Yeah, that they have been subtly suggesting deserve this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not going to motivate them. And just the fact that we've seen nobody really talk about gun reform is just, it's wild to me. I guess it's a sign of the times, a sign of where we are, and not a great indication in my mind.
No.
Yeah. But of course, since his attorney is claiming that he is non-binary, the jury's still kind of out, literally, on the fact that on determining if it was motivated by hatred, if it's actually a hate crime. Signs point to it being a bigoted attack, right? Because if you go to a Jewish synagogue, right, and you just blow it up or something, obviously people are going to say it's anti-Semitic.
Nobody thinks that it's not. Oh yeah, that just happened to be where it was at.
Right.
It's just coincidence.
Right. Like, if no one's going to say it's a coincidence. No one's going to, if the dude that does that comes out and says oh, well, I'm Jewish now. No one's going to believe that.
Yeah.
It's an anti-Semitic attack.
If the dude doesn't even come out to say he's Jewish now, his lawyers say that he's Jewish now, and he's got nothing, and he, in fact, only has a history of saying bad things about Jewish people.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's a little muddy.
So, of course, after this tragedy happened, it has inflamed discourse as to the right-wing media's responsibility in acts like this.
Yeah.
And there's been all kinds of narratives, and I want to try to break down all of them because there's been some fucking vile people talking about how they should not be held responsible and how it's actually the fault of the victims that this kind of thing is happening.
It is.
And I'll try to keep calm, because this is this is just evil. This is just straight up evil.
I can't understand how we live in a culture that takes these things seriously. There's a tweet by Charlie Kirk, I think it was earlier today, actually, on Sunday, where he said, we live in a culture, it's morally reprehensible that we live in a culture that accepts the fact that the number of trans people have doubled in the past 5 years.
Right.
Dog, this is the exact rhetoric that we're saying is causing this harm.
Right.
You're going to tweet that a week after the shooting?
Right.
And it's trans shooting?
And we're gonna get on into all this in just a second, but just the fact that people like Charlie Kirk always insinuate that there is something inherently wrong, inherently immoral, inherently, degrading about being a trans person or just being a part of the LGBTQ that motivates hatred towards those people.
Yeah.
And while he's not explicitly saying we should kill all these people or we should kick them out of our country or erase them from society, he is suggesting that there's something wrong with it and expects you as the reader, listener, whatever, to make the logical conclusion in his mind that there's something needs to be done. Right, it's the equivalent of a Nazi saying something needs to be done about these people, but never actually saying we should do a Holocaust.
That's exactly what I was going to get into, because the more mid-tier commentators like Charlie Kirk that actually have to kind of teeter along the lines of being somewhat of a respectable figure,
even though he's clearly a white supremacist.
Even though he's awful in every sense of the way, especially to people who are politic brained like we are.
Exactly.
To a regular person, I can imagine they see Turning Point USA and think, maybe they have some good points. As vile as that is, he doesn't have to say those those things. He doesn't have to go all the way up to the line but not cross it like Tucker Carlson does when he says something needs to be done about this. What are we going to do about these people who are doing these groomings? And even some of the mid-tier guys are coming out and saying that, like, suggesting that, well, the violence will stop when the grooming stops.
Exactly.
Like Tim Pool said.
Yeah.
Literally Tim Pool said.
That was like verbatim the Tim Pool take, was that like, these shootings keep happening because you keep grooming children. But like having a drag show, doing whatever the fuck you want to do is not grooming children. And that's literally the same thing as saying, oh, well, you know, the bombing of synagogues, Jewish synagogues will stop once you stop doing blood libel.
Yeah.
Like you're just making shit up and then authorizing violence and saying like, oh, well, you know, the violence against you is not going to stop until you stop being Jewish or you stop existing.
I have the exact Tim Pool tweets right here. I have two of them. One, we shouldn't tolerate pedophiles grooming kids. Club Q had a grooming event. How to prevent the violence and stop the grooming. Mm-hmm. The grooming event that he's referring to is like a all ages drag queen brunch that they were going to have later on that Sunday. Mm-hmm. And keeping with this point, right, they always talk about these like drag queen events as if they're inherently sexual. Mm-hmm. Like when drag is not inherently sexual at all.
Not at all.
And one I'd like to point to is I keep seeing over the week people talking about these events at public libraries where drag queens are reading to kids. A kid is going to that and thinking, wow, look at this person in a funny costume.
Yeah.
Look at this person who's dressing kind of out of the ordinary in a really big fun hat and who's got really fun clothes on and cool colored hair.
Right. Their hair looks silly and they got a big hat.
And
that's all it is.
Wow, that's fun makeup. Like a kid isn't thinking like, oh, fuck, dude, I think I want to suck cock now.
Well, no, especially, they're definitely not thinking that. But the fact is, like, if a kid goes to a drag event, right, oftentimes these drag events, the people have more clothes on than kids do at fucking beauty pageants.
Real.
And they don't bat an eye at the fucking beauty pageants. Again, they have like silly costumes on and they're just doing an event for fun or to express themselves, whatever it may be. It's not grooming in any way to have a drag event because it's a performance.
Yeah.
Like these people are performing. Of course, a performance can be sexual. There are drag shows, of course, that are sexual to some extent.
Yeah, and that's uncontroversial to say.
But that's the case with every kind of performance. There's dances that can be sexual. There's ballets that can be sexual. There's beauty pageants that can be sexual. But that doesn't mean these things are inherently sexual. Yeah. Just as drag shows are not inherently sexual, or drag queen events in general are not inherently sexual, especially if they're fully clothed and like fucking reading to kids. Who cares? It's not going to make your kid turn trans. And if the kid grows up after having attended one of those events and says, you know what, I was assigned male at birth, but I honestly feel like identifying as she, her would make more sense for me, then they were already trans to begin with. And having attended those events will make their mental health so much better because they will know that they aren't alone in the world.
And it's also like, even with like Comic-Cons, Anime Expos, like local things like that, nobody looks at the cosplayers and said, oh, kids should not attend these events.
Right, no, exactly.
When those cosplayers are dressing explicitly sexual, in explicitly sexual renditions of these characters. You know what I mean? Nobody looks at that and thinks that's fine.
Right.
Or thinks that that's like not okay.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's not okay. I'm just using that to point out that like drag shows are nothing.
Yeah.
They're fucking nothing.
And like these takes are coming from people like Matt Walsh, who just recently was exposed for having the take that like 16-year-olds are prime time for sex, for having children.
Yeah.
Like these are the people that have the most insane takes on consent and then expect us to listen to their takes on drag shows or kids or grooming or anything like that. I feel like at this point, every time a right-winger makes an accusation, it's just them admitting to something they believe.
Yeah, Matt Walsh, who famously said that Harvey Weinstein was a good guy.
Yeah.
And that Harvey Weinstein was actually the victim of all those 17-year-olds.
All those young movie stars just abusing him so that they could get better roles in movies. Yeah, he was the real victim, not him.
They only want him for his position of power. Do you know how alienating that is to only be wanted for your position of power?
No, it's like he'll make the same argument for like archbishops of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
As if the Catholic Church isn't at this point explicitly known for grooming young boys. It's crazy. They will do anything. It's like their brains are literally wired backwards. It's crazy.
Well, Matt Walsh also famously said when talking about an archbishop who like fucked a kid, said something like, oh, it's not the pedophilia that was wrong. He was like 17 years old. It was the fact that he was gay that was bad. Matt Walsh gets on his show and explicitly says that being gay is bad. And we tolerate that?
Well, yeah, and like they'll explicitly say being gay is bad. They'll explicitly say that trans women are not women, deny the existence of trans people, or at least the validity of their existence, and then come out and say, oh, well, this kind of violence isn't my fault. I'm just pointing out specific instances. It's like, no, you know what you're doing it intentionally, and then you're trying to backtrack and avoid any responsibility for your actions that you know contribute to this kind of violence.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know that. That's why they continue to do it.
And then they even have tweets that are just directly calling for violence, like this next Tim Pool tweet. He said, "The grooming of children is not stopping. People are calling for more violence. I do not think legislators will stop the grooming. People will not stop calling for violence. So you tell me what happens next."
Exactly.
He's calling for violence.
Like unambiguously, not even going to make a joke about it. This is a call for genocide.
Purely,
this is genocidal language.
Purely in context. The text of the tweet, what the text is presenting to me is him saying that, yeah, it's actually okay to call for violence because nothing else is stopping this.
He doesn't leave much room for interpretation.
There isn't. He's saying it in plain English right there.
Yeah.
And motherfuckers are still spinning it and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Stop.
Yeah.
They do not deserve, these conservative commentators do not deserve the benefit of the doubt, and they never have deserved the benefit of the doubt. They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. Like most of them are smart enough to understand what they're saying does incite hate.
Yeah.
Especially like your Ben Shapiro types. That dude went to fucking Harvard. He understands what he's doing. While he may actually believe some of the malicious things that he says, he knows that what he says, based on the platform that he has, based on the company that he's built, that he has a listening base.
Oh,
he has people that will believe him. And in the comments, if you ever read through a Daily Wire video comment section, you know they are fucking insane.
And it's like, even while, like, weirdly enough, Ben Shapiro has been trying to position himself as a moderate after,
which is wild,
after the midterm elections, which has been kind of insane to watch.
Yeah.
That doesn't excuse the fact that his company, the Daily Wire, employs Matt Walsh.
Yes.
Employs these people who are
Michael
saying
Knowles,
these
Matt
vile
Walsh,
things.
Candace Owens,
and he himself says all these vile things. Ben Shapiro is kind of a common thread through this episode that we'll see later of just being awful. Awful.
I guess, though, we should probably like lay out the situation and the argument and all that kind of stuff. So for the past several months, as we have been observing for the past several months, maybe over a year at this point, the right-wing media has been pushing this narrative, trying to link grooming with trans people or grooming with LGBTQ people in general. And this isn't a new strategy, by the way. They've always tried to link, before trans people, it was gay people, right? They tried to link gay people with being, I don't know, morally depraved and somehow inherently pedophilic.
Yeah.
And this was always the narrative before Obergefell v. Hodges. And then they kind of got away from it because it was becoming more popular to accept gay people. And now they have shifted their hatred and their accusations of grooming onto trans people. And this has been the narrative that we've been observing for the past several months. And they have been trying to link together being a groomer and being transgender. And they've done this through multitudes of different kinds of ways, right? They've pulled up specific instances of grooming and said, like, look at what this trans person is doing, often embellishing or just completely fabricating events in general. They've been, calling for the firing of teachers. You've had the Libs of TikTok account that is basically just doxing people and making kill lists for others. They've had, calling for books to be removed. They've been calling for certain laws to be crafted. All of it is an attempt to shape a narrative, to shape a message without explicitly saying it, that trans people are somehow inherently groomers, right? Teaching kids about pronouns is somehow grooming, or having kids learn about LGBTQ history, learn that trans people are in fact people and they are valid in their identities. Teaching them that is somehow grooming.
It's because the idea behind it, right? Because none of that is actually grooming. Yet again, it's another instance of conservatives misunderstanding the English language, because they can't do it, or intentionally misrepresenting the English language. The core thesis of this is that well, kids shouldn't be taught about sex, which is already in of itself just a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because kids do need to be taught about sex. Yes, kids need to be taught about sex in an age-appropriate way.
Of course.
You're not going to go showing porn to a 5-year-old. However, you do need to teach kids when their boundaries are being crossed.
Yes.
When an adult is being genuinely inappropriate with them, so that they can not be molested, so that they have the tools with whatever age that they're at to combat adults who have bad intentions with them.
And the recent narrative they've been trying to push, or I guess the recent counter they've been trying to offer to accusations of them being culpable in shootings like what happened at Colorado Springs, is they've been trying to say, like, oh, well, we're not the ones generalizing. We're pointing out specific instances of trans people or LGBTQ people in general grooming children, and we're saying that's bad and something needs to be done about it. But of course, if you define grooming as teaching kids about being trans, teaching kids about trans people existing in general, having drag shows that are completely age appropriate for anybody involved, or just generally being trans in public at all, if you define that as grooming, then yes, you are authorizing violence towards those people. And I don't know how they don't understand this. When we have an absolute wave of media narratives accusing trans people of being groomers, then of course you're authorizing violence against those people. If you believe that trans people are grooming kids in mass and that kids are being forcibly transitioned in mass, what does that authorize? What does that give you a moral license to do?
When you talk about one instance of a drag show that may have gone a little bit too far, right? When you talk about that, and then in the same breath, talk about an instance of some teacher in some school in the middle of buttfuck nowhere playing a pronoun game with her kids, how do you not make that connection?
Exactly.
You know what you're doing. Like, there's an implicit connection being made there.
Yeah, and again, oftentimes the stories that they do bring up are either embellished, they dance around the details, or they fully just fucking make it up.
Yeah.
Because there's so many instances of, like, Tucker Carlson or, a Ben Shapiro or anyone else on Fox News, whatever, of them talking about a news story where, like, somebody was attacked in a bathroom, assaulted in a bathroom by a trans person.
Yeah.
And then when you look into that, all of it's fucking fabricated.
Oh, yeah.
They just made it up, or they're talking about a news story based off incomplete information, and then information came out later that completely contradicted the story, and they still talk about it as if the original idea, the original reporting was the exact truth.
Yeah.
They just make it up, and it's all... yes, if you watch a Tucker Carlson clip, and he's talking about a specific instance of, I don't know, some gay teacher actually grooming a child, then yes, like, that's a bad thing. And we're not saying that that's not a bad thing, but by constantly talking about it, by constantly demonizing a marginalized group, of course you are creating a message where policies like abolishing gender-affirming care or banning books from certain LGBTQ books from schools, etc., you are making a narrative where that is okay. And you are constructing a message that trans people are somehow a threat to children in general. And we know this to be true because a bunch of policies are being passed to that effect.
Yeah.
And it's not even just trans people, it's LGBTQ people as a whole, because we have people like the Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, saying, like, yeah, I'll enforce sodomy laws if I get the chance to do it.
Fucking insane.
Like, that's crazy.
Just because
I don't get how they're not making this connection.
Like, by virtue of it being the law, he invoked the Nuremberg defense.
Yeah.
But there's also in, I believe, Alabama, trying straight up to just ban all gender-affirming care. I think we covered this a couple months ago. I believe it was Alabama, right?
I think it was Alabama. A couple of states.
A couple of states are just completely trying to ban it. And I see people bringing up arguments like, well, yeah, an 8-year-old shouldn't be getting, like, surgeries and shit. 8-year-olds are not getting surgeries. 8-year-olds are not having their dicks flipped inside out.
Exactly. It's not happening.
That's not what's going on. At earliest, kids are put on, like, puberty blockers, maybe, which is fine and completely reversible.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you go through puberty a little bit later if you detransition. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
Right.
Whatever. These things are proven to be helpful. Or even a step above that, people are getting double mastectomies when they're like 16, which it's like you're 16.
Right.
I think you're old enough to be able to make decisions about your body.
Yeah.
Especially decisions that can be, while not like fully reversed. A double mastectomy can't be reversed, as in you can't get your titties back.
Yeah, of course.
You can get fake ones. They can be functionally reversed.
Well, and it's not even just that. It's like the narrative, what they're trying to respond with is by saying, like, well, being anti-groomer is not being anti-gay, which is of course true. And then they'll say, by generalizing and saying that what we're talking about is, by accusing us of saying that trans people are groomers, you're the one that's actually being homophobic. You're the one that's actually being transphobic. And it's like, sure, saying that being anti-groomer is not being anti-gay is true. But if you define grooming as existing as trans, then yes, you are being transphobic.
Yeah, if you define grooming as existing as trans or gay or lesbian or non-binary around children, then you are transphobic. Like, there's no other way around it. That's not even what grooming is.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is the trick, the narrative trick that right-wingers have always tried to pull, right? The right-wing media did this and has done this, continues to do this for decades about black people in general. When they're talking about crime rates and they're showing specific instances of, people in predominantly black neighborhoods robbing stores or committing some type of crime or, breaking into a home, some kind of home invasion, they're showing those explicitly so that you begin to fear and have hatred or have indifference towards the black community.
Yeah.
Of course, then they can back up and say, oh, well, we're just showing specific instances of crime. We're not generalizing. And actually, you're the racist for generalizing.
Oh.
But we know that they are explicitly showing this without adding any context, without coming out and saying this isn't all black people. They are doing it to elicit fear and to create a narrative, create an incentive structure, or just a approval from the public to crack down on that kind of behavior, to crack down on those kinds of people.
There was a TikTok account. I mean, there's many TikTok accounts, but there's a specific TikTok account, I believe last year. He was on his like 8th account because he was doing very bad things that I stitched because I love shitting on bad people.
Of course.
It's fun and morally good, right? But the whole goal of his account, every video that he posted was highlighting an instance of crime where a black man killed a white woman or a white child. It's like it's exactly what we're talking about. You know what you're doing. You're pushing forth this narrative because people are biased. People are only going to notice what they see. Exactly. And if they're only seeing your TikToks because of something the algorithm did, they're going to think, oh, holy shit, yeah, there must be something wrong with these people.
Exactly.
There must be something wrong. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because if you're only pointing out like instances of trans people doing something bad, then your audience is going to start to believe like, oh, well, maybe all trans people are like this.
Yeah.
Especially if the point of all of your rhetoric and all of the stories you talk about and all the things that you focus on is to point out and is to say that somehow trans people are evil and somehow they're a threat to your children. Then of course people are going to start to believe that. And if they believe that, then they're going to take action.
Especially when you don't know any fucking trans people.
Right.
Like, if you're someone who doesn't know any trans people, I feel like you're the one that's susceptible to this.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately. And then that rhetoric makes it so that if you have any children who end up being trans, that you just become a bad parent and a bad person.
And it's like, when it comes to this stuff, we can look to history, right?
Yeah.
The Nazis never came out and said, we should do a genocide.
Yeah.
In all of their media, because the Nazis controlled a lot of media, they never came out and directly said, we should kill every person that's a part of the Jewish population that's in Germany right now. They didn't say that. They pointed to certain instances of them being traitors or businesses going back against, the national will or whatever else it may be. But it was all to manufacture consent for the genocide that they wanted to do. And it's the same thing that we're seeing with trans people right now. Of course, you may think, well, that's embellishing, right? Like, you're being dramatic by saying they want to do a genocide
come on now.
Yeah, like you're being so dramatic with what you're saying. Like, of course they don't want to do a genocide against trans people, but by saying that teaching kids about trans people is grooming, by being trans around kids is grooming, by just teaching kids that trans people exist is grooming, you are saying that trans people are somehow inherently harming your children. What action does that justify? And if it isn't violence, I don't know what it is.
The only logical extent of that thinking, if you subscribe to the rhetoric that Tim Pool is pushing, that Tucker Carlson is pushing, as we'll get into, that Charlie Cook is pushing, that any of these fucking right-wing nut jobs and bad people are pushing, then the logical extent of that argument is that there should not be any trans people.
Exactly.
You cannot swing it any other way.
Exactly. No, exactly. And of course, it's not true. They've offered no real evidence that trans people are somehow hurting kids in mass, or that kids are being transitioned in mass, or like harmed somehow on a massive scale. They've offered no real evidence to this. But everything they talk about, every little dot in the narrative and the message that they're trying to create, is used to create an argument that for some reason, somehow, trans people are hurting your children.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and if you start to believe that to be true, then of course, genocidal rhetoric is justified, just as we talked about with Tim Pool, or with Ben Shapiro, or with Matt Walsh, or with Tucker Carlson. They start to say things like, I don't know, someone has to do something about this, or if they want the violence to stop, then maybe they should stop doing drag shows.
Yeah.
That justifies violence. I don't understand why we have to explain stochastic terrorism. The stochastic terrorists never come out and say we should do terrorism. They just get people thinking that violence is the only answer.
They just get people thinking that they have to do something about this. Something, anything, someone's got to stop it.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to stop it.
And again, they'll back into saying things like, well, we're just talking about specific instances. And of course, you're the transphobic one. You're the homophobic one for trying to make the link. But places like Fox News have effectively demonized all of the trans community. And the point of that, and really just the LGBTQ community broadly, and the point of it is that if you can effectively demonize, dehumanize, and incite indifference towards a group of people, then when shooting occurs, it's really easy to get people to blame the victims.
Yeah.
And when people are indifferent towards a population, they don't care what you do to them. Yeah. And again, this is the same thing that the right-wing media has done to black people throughout history. All of the demonization, or all of just the linking of blackness to crime in general, like just the criminal element inherent to being black, by linking that in a message, in a narrative, without any real evidence to suggest that it's true, you create indifference towards the black population, and then suddenly everyone who's not a part of the black population doesn't care what happens to them.
Exactly. When you constantly throw out 1350, 1350, 1350, 1350 as the new N-word, and then you get things like that guy on TikTok only showing instances of black people killing white people in sort of racially motivated crime, you're gonna start to think things. They're poisoning the well. It's just like how right-wing media pundits, again, poison the well with the anti-trans trans rhetoric, with the groomer rhetoric, and then you not knowing any trans people, right? You go on and you see Charlie Kirk post something like the number of trans people have doubled in the last 5 years because trans people are grooming people. Then that seems like reasonable evidence if you're fucking stupid.
Right. It's all in an attempt to manufacture a sort of indifference towards trans people so that when killing starts to happen, when violence starts happening, and when it's enforced by the state, nobody cares about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be effective, right? We're early on in whatever this process is going to end up being. I hope that it's not effective. I think a lot of people, because of social media and stuff like that, are recognizing exactly what's going on. But I also worry that the public in general is going to, like, you know, their opinion is already that, like, well, trans people are a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they already think. And then by watching, like, you know, a Tucker Carlson, Fox News, Ben Shapiro, whatever.
By seeing libs of TikTok
right,
on Twitter.
Their views are slowly going to get more extreme. And eventually, when shootings happen, it's like, yeah, well, you know, they went against God. And that's really what scares me.
I'm honestly more worried for their souls.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, that's the kind of takes we'll get. And it really worries me that people are not waking up to this, because it is genocidal language. We've been talking about this for months now, of course. And
I've been saying this.
We've been saying this, and all of our listeners know that, like, everything they're trying to do to marginalize groups in general, but specifically the LGBTQ, you know, enforcing sodomy laws again, overturning Obergefell v. Hodges, you know, abolishing gender-affirming care, all of this stuff is to build up to an erasure of people from society, and that is a genocide. Yeah. And I really worry that people are not catching on to that.
Like, what happened to the American value of freedom?
Right.
Unironically, what happened to freedom? What happened to letting people do whatever the fuck they want?
Yeah.
Like, it's not affecting you. It doesn't affect you whether or not a trans kid exists.
And of course, the people that are saying, like, well, you're the transphobic one for trying to generalize this to all gay people or all trans people in general or all LGBTQ people in general, these are the same ones that lose their fucking minds when a Pixar movie has an all gay cast.
Yeah,
like,
or
it's the same
lose
people
their
that
mind
freak out
when
about that.
There's a two girls kiss once in the background, two girls peck in the background.
Right, like it's like, well, these are movies for kids and you're having gay people. Like, yeah, you're the ones that freak out about gay people being represented anywhere in culture. Like, of course, you're the ones that want to get rid of them. And I don't know why that. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see them crafting a narrative and being semi-successful at it. It's just,
oh my God, I know. Especially when it's like, it's so fucking stupid. It's just fucking dumb.
Yeah, yeah. And a few days after the shooting happened in Colorado Springs, Tucker Carlson had a guest on his show, and they had this to say. We'll play the clip for you.
Yeah, roll the clip.
But what is anti-LGBTQ that these people need to understand, and what is putting our community in great danger, is claiming that all of us support this and just associating all of us with this. Saying that groomer is an anti-LGBTQ slur, that is doing irreparable damage to us as a whole, and is putting a really large target on our backs. And unfortunately, the tragedy that happened in Colorado Springs the other night, it was expected and predictable. We all, within Gays Against Groomers, saw this coming from a mile away. Yeah. And sadly, I don't think it's going to stop until we end this evil agenda that is attacking children.
I want to point out how crazy it is that at the end, she says that this violence is not going to stop until children stop being harmed.
Like, oh my God.
It's the same thing as saying, it's literally the same thing, like verbatim. It's the same thing as saying that, it's really sad that this Jewish synagogue was bombed, but the violence isn't going to stop until the blood libel stops.
Come on, people. Come on. Like, look at it. They're grooming kids.
Right. You're crafting a narrative. You're making up a false narrative that somehow trans people, LGBTQ people are hurting kids en masse, and then saying, well, that's really sad that this shooting happened, but, LGBTQ people, they're not going to stop being killed until you stop grooming people, when the grooming isn't fucking happening.
Yeah.
Like that, again, it authorizes violence. It is a form of stochastic terrorism, and it's I don't know, a willingness to do genocide. It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
It is. It's fucking insane. It's just insane that this is what's on the most popular news broadcast in America.
Yeah.
News, I say news lightly.
Yeah. And it's like, of course, there's children are not being sexualized in mass. There's no, mass movement on behalf of the LGBTQ to sexualize children and to threaten children or anything like that. There's no, like, I can't even believe we have to say this, but there's no gay agenda. Because this is really the kind of narrative that they're employing, is like, there's a gay agenda, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the gay agenda all over again, the trans agenda. This isn't happening in mass, but by saying it is, and by crafting a narrative that it is, you get to do things like justify violence against them and then back up and say, oh, well, that's not our fault. I can't believe you're blaming us.
Yeah, come on now.
Yeah. So
no, because that's
really
like that's just what the organization we were going to talk about is the Gays Against Groomers.
Yeah,
that's the kind of shit that they're spitting. Oh, we're gays, but we're against the radical gay agenda. We really miss the days of the '80s where we just had to keep to ourselves and couldn't do anything in public.
Yeah. So I guess we can just get into that. You may have heard her in a Tucker Carlson clip say that she's a part of this group called Gays Against Groomers, and in fact, the person talking, I believe, was like the leader of the group. It's a 501c4 organization. It's a social welfare nonprofit or something like that. Yeah. It's a group called Gays Against Groomers, and I wanted to do some investigation into them because people were confused what they were doing. I couldn't find a ton on them because they're not that large of a group, and also I couldn't find any financial disclosures because I was going to see if they were funded by right-wing billionaires.
Oh, I bet.
But I couldn't find anything on that. But we can go through like who they proclaim to be, right?
Okay.
So in their Instagram bio, it says, quote, "A coalition of gays against the sexualization and indoctrination and medicalization of children." I don't really know what this means.
That's crazy. I just kind of it's turfy. It's just turfy.
Yeah,
it really is. Like you're not only are you actively oppressing members of a community that you're involved in, like Lucy, under the broader banner of the LGBTQ community, but you're complicit in your own oppression. Yeah, because this does not stop at like trans people. Like they also think you're the groomer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why you've seen, like, and we'll talk about the whole Trump dining with Nazis a little bit later.
Yeah.
But you've even seen, like, Ben Shapiro seems like he's getting a bit nervous about right-wingers seemingly now embracing, not even on the fringes anymore, just embracing anti-Semitism.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, because I don't know if he knows this, but, like, if the right wing really does move more towards anti-Semitism, which seems like it's going to, he's not safe.
No.
And if the right wing, again, moves more towards hating LGBTQ people and being okay with a genocide of LGBTQ people, then people within Gays Against Groomers are also not safe. You're only one of the good ones for so long until you're not anymore.
And it's also like the position that Ben Shapiro finds himself in is definitely a precarious one.
Yeah.
It's not as if anti-Semitism is any more illogical than homophobia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. You can't also be this personality who spouts this homophobic rhetoric, this anti-trans rhetoric, this anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, and also think that your audience is somehow immune to becoming anti-Semitic and falling victim to the same sort of the same style of talking points just against you. It's ignorant to say so.
Yeah, well, because the same kind of ignorance that is required to be homophobic is the ignorance that authorizes anti-Semitism as well. And it's no surprise, like it shouldn't be surprising that hate goes along with other forms of hate, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not surprising that being a misogynist is a really easy thing to do while also being a racist or an anti-Semite or whatever else it may be. Like these ideologies very easily go together. And I think that he knows this, but the right wing is now trending more and more towards being openly anti-Semitic again, as it was, back in the 1940s.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what his move is there because he's not gonna be embraced forever, or at least, Jewish people that find themselves on the right, the very few that are actually on the right, you are going to become a target one day.
Ben Shapiro will,
and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, Ben Shapiro obviously I don't like that. Ben Shapiro could never become like a leftist, right? But I do fear that he could become kind of like a Adam Kissinger liberal.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? Kind of like a Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
Just be a Lincoln Project guy.
I mean, he's never going to be brought over to the left.
No.
But like, I don't know. I feel like, because he isn't a stupid guy. Like he's one of the few right-wing media hosts that knows what he's talking about is all fucking bullshit.
He's a grifter in every sense of the word.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Matt Walsh generally believes the bigoted
Steven
things
Crowder,
that he
like he's actually stupid.
Yeah, like Steven Crowder is fucking dumb. Dumber than rocks, honestly. I'll say it. Ben Shapiro knows what he's talking about, and he's just doing it for money.
Exactly.
And I wonder how he feels knowing that he's employing Matt Walsh, who Matt Walsh will definitely turn on the anti-Semitic talking points as soon as they're popular.
Yeah. And
as soon as Nick Fuentes gains more momentum, Matt Walsh will be right there with him.
What does Ben do then?
Yeah.
What does any person from a marginalized group that identifies with the right wing, what do you do at that point?
Yeah.
Like if your party or if the groups that you associate yourself with openly start hating people or certain identities that you are a part of, what I don't know what you do. Like I don't have an answer there. Genuinely, I don't know.
As rhetoric overall just starts ramping up, just hateful rhetoric just continues to be on the rise, partly because of you.
Yeah, like, and do you just like sit there and take it like Dave Rubin does?
Yeah,
because like he's been a victim of this ever since he's joined right-wing circles, because he used to like pose as like a classical liberal or something like that, right? But like he is a gay man who is a part of, I think he's a part of the Daily Wire, or maybe he has his own thing.
Yeah,
but he like the fact that he's gay is like hated by all of them. Like,
none
of them like him. They didn't go to it like his wedding.
I was just about to say, like they talk like they're friends, right? Like Dave Rubin talks about Ben Shapiro like his friend, and then he says in an interview, he's like, yeah, Ben didn't go to my wedding because he objected to it for religious reasons. Like, dog, that's not your friend. What are you doing?
Like, what happens when violence against those marginalized groups becomes more mainstream, becomes more authorized by right-wing figures? What do you do then?
There's no way the bag is that worth it.
Exactly.
Like, me, a perpetual bag chaser. Even I would not stoop down to that level.
No, yeah, because it's gonna, like, you're gonna get caught up in, like, violent, like, physical violence at some point. Like, I don't know what you do there.
What happens when, again, they turn on all gay people? Again.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing that would stop it at trans people. The next time they hear an instance of, like, I don't know, a kindergartner saying, like, oh, yeah, Tommy's kind of cute, or whatever, they're gonna be like, oh, look at this gay motherfucker grooming children.
Exactly.
Like, there's no stop to it.
I know.
It's just like white supremacy. It's this endlessly devolving thing. It's this this self-eating cycle.
Well, because even the Nazis, like, they got as many people into their ranks as they could from different ideologies until they didn't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Like, Nazism was open to socialists at first, socialists who were, like, racist and white supremacists that stayed in their ranks, and then when they didn't need them anymore, when they faced too much resistance from them, they killed them off.
Exactly, after they used them to prop up their own movement by adopting this rhetoric that's popular, this left-wing economic populism, they just killed them and did their own thing.
And Hitler always said that the only time when Nazis could have been defeated was when they were in the very beginning of their movement, when they were nascent still. That's when they could have been defeated, because that's when they were their weakest and most vulnerable. And I worry that we're not defeating the right-wing wave that is rising when it's at its most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's going to become more powerful. It's going to gain more institutional power. And like we got away from it a little bit in 2022 with the elections, but who's to say what's coming next?
Yeah.
Because right-wingers, historically, fascists that have risen to power, have taken major losses in elections before, after 5 or 6 years, they came to power and killed millions of people. And I don't know where we go from here.
It's fucking insane. And I do genuinely wonder where all of these, like, it's tokens. Like, it's fair to say that Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Candace Owen, they are all right-wing tokens. The broader right-wing movement is a white supremacist movement that does not fucking care about them and only uses them as far as they can use their rhetoric and their status as a member of a marginalized group to dodge accusations of being hateful against those groups, while they do hateful things against those groups in the background, not even the background, in the forefront.
Right, exactly. It's not great. But going back to Gays Against Groomers, I have a little bit of a blurb from their website. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but this is on their About page.
Okay.
So none of you have to ever tolerate going to their website. We're going to read through it, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So
nice.
On their About page says, Gays Against Groomers directly opposes the sexualization and indoctrination of children. This includes drag queen story hours, drag shows involving children, the transitioning and medicalization of minors, and gender theory being taught in the classroom. So that's the first point. And I want to go through this bit by bit. So they say sexualization and indoctrination of children, right? These are very easy things to oppose. And they don't really mean anything in the context of what they're saying.
These are things that I oppose.
Right, of course.
These are things that we oppose.
Right.
Official head in the office statement.
You should oppose the sexualization and indoctrination of children, right? And you can ask like what indoctrination means, because that can get really tricky. Any education could be considered indoctrination to some extent, but right, like even if we just focus on sexualization, of course, this is something you can easily be opposed to. But this is how right-wing groups get away with being hateful, right? They say something like, "I'm against crime." Or they say, like, I am for freedom. But then they use being for or against certain things to then justify restricting rights or erasing populations as a whole. Yeah. Because how can you claim to be against child sexualization? No one's for that. No. Of course nobody's for that. But when they define sexualization as having trans people exist around kids, then they get to justify violence against trans people while backing up and saying, oh no, I'm not like against trans people. I just don't want them to be sexual. I just don't want kids to be sexualized.
Exactly. That's how they get away with it. Kids shouldn't be reading about sex. Kids shouldn't be reading about sex things.
And then, as we've already talked about, like drag queen story hour, like what is wrong with that?
It's literally at a public library. Yeah. There is nothing less sexy than a public library, dog. Like, there's no way you can spice that up. Out there. I'm sorry to the bookworms. I'm sorry if we have any librarians in the chat. I understand you went to school for an absurd amount of time to be a librarian, but there is nothing less sexy than a public library.
Right, and it's like the transitioning and medicalization of minors. I mean, I don't really know of any case or any cases in mass where like kids are fully receiving just total transition surgery.
Yeah.
I don't think it's happening. What is happening, though, is that kids can sometimes, or not kids, but like people that are like 15, 16, can be placed on hormone replacement therapy, right? And this has been shown over various medical studies to help children that are dealing with difficulties in their gender identity.
Yeah.
And it is shown to, like do things like reduce suicide rates because it helps them deal with, I don't know, how they feel about themselves internally. And by the way, when we talk about like, I don't know, just like gender affirming care in general.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about hormone replacement therapy. We're talking about therapy in general. Teaching kids how to deal with different social behaviors to make them feel more comfortable in their own bodies. It's a whole slew of
letting
things.
kids dress however the fuck they want.
There's a whole slew of things that has helped children that are having difficulties with their gender identity more easily assimilate into the role that makes them feel the most comfortable.
Yeah.
And this has been shown to help people. But when you force people into a very rigid set of social characteristics that they don't feel comfortable in, that of course, like I don't even know why I have to explain, that's going to hurt your mental health.
Oh yeah.
And that's going to make you, deal with the things like depression and suicide, thoughts of suicide a lot more. And I don't really know why I need to explain that, but it's just they like to poison the well so much and try to get you away from, I don't know, logical thinking.
Yeah.
Like it's
and it's like, even
great.
so, this rhetoric doesn't even necessarily stop at trans people or members of the LGBTQ community.
No.
Matt Walsh, in his video talking about this situation, explained drag queens as men who have a fetish for cross-dressing in front of children.
Yeah.
And what is cross-dressing, Matt Walsh? Is cross-dressing when I see cishet just fucking dudes on TikTok wear that $8 tank top from Target and rock it better than women do, even though it's a woman's tank top? Is that cross-dressing? Is it cross-dressing when a cishet male sneakerhead gets the Amamanier Jordan 3s because they're only available in women's sizes?
Right.
Even though you wouldn't fucking know. You would have no idea that someone pulling up in the women's tank top from Target or some Amamanier Jordan 3s, that those are women's items if you're Matt Walsh. One, because gender is fucking stupid. Masculinity is a prison, and, and assigning clothes for boys and girls is dumb and stupid.
Yeah.
It should just be masculine and feminine.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, again, they just use these terms like sexualization, indoctrination, drag queen story. Like, it's meant to elicit fear. And fear is what it does elicit. And it has been effective. And they're being called out on it for being complicit in things like the shooting in Colorado Springs. And they try to avoid all culpability by backing up and saying, oh, well, look, I'm not actually inciting fear. Like, I didn't say to go hurt anybody.
Yeah, come on now.
But they can get away with it by doing things like that. And then this list also says gender theory being taught in classrooms.
Nuts.
I don't even know where to go. Like, what do you mean gender theory in classrooms?
Like, you're fucking stupid.
First of all, not being taught to children. Second of all, where else is it going to be taught if not in the classroom?
And first, like, even third of all, most importantly, what they think is gender theory is simple biology. Is things like my genetics professor, when we're going over pedigrees, saying that, like, well, I'm going to refer to these things as male, female. Just know that those aren't the only two options biologically. You can have XXX or XXY chromosomes, XY, XX, and a plethora of other things. I'm only using these things for simplicity. Is that gender theory in the classroom?
Well, that's
when my genetics professor clarifies a scientific fact.
I mean, like, yeah, you'll have Tucker Carlson going on and saying, like, it used to be taught in biology classrooms that there was XX and XY, but now, and then, he goes on his transphobic rant. It's like, you're just wrong.
But now, like, science changes and you're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
You are demonstrably dumb.
It's
you
interesting.
failed the test.
It's interesting how no piece of well-cited academia research ever supports their arguments in any way.
No, and it's
crazy.
like, at this point, I need a new word to communicate how fucking dumb they are.
Right.
Because just calling them dumb, calling them stupid, calling them dumber than rocks isn't hitting like it should.
And it's not, this isn't like, this goes well beyond the anti-intellectual movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not even just like, being opposed to academics in general.
This is well beyond Betsy DeVos and her plan to just gut public education.
It's like intentionally being wrong to incite hate against people.
Yeah.
Like nothing in academia, nothing in actual peer-reviewed research backs up any of your positions, yet you hold them nonetheless.
Yet all these scientists have an agenda.
Yeah.
All these scientists who hail from different labs all across the world who have come to the same conclusions have an agenda, except this one guy except this one guy who said something different in a paper that was cited once.
It reminds me of Sneeko, right? You've seen like Sneeko
I've
debates
seen Sneeko stuff.
where somebody like Hunter Avalon or Destiny will be talking to Sneeko and they'll like cite actual evidence of like, certain aspects of masculinity, toxic masculinity, hurting people in their mental health. And the only thing he's able to say there is like, well, that's what they want you to believe.
Yeah,
all he can do is back up into conspiracy.
I saw his debate with Hunter Avalon, and Hunter Avalon was talking about like masculinity, toxic masculinity being this bad thing, which it is, obviously, demonstrably. Yeah. Again, this is settled fact. Honestly, this is settled science. And Sneeko's only retort was, "Aren't you on antidepressants though?
Right.
Why would I learn about being happy from someone who's on antidepressants? Clearly you're not happy. Sneeko, I can tell that you're not happy the way you're fucking screaming at the computer right now."
You can present the most well-researched, unbiased, objective, peer-reviewed, scholarly research, and their only retort is, well, that's what they want you to believe.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, who is they? And also, do you have any evidence to oppose what was just offered?
And it's just like funny because the only people that like watch that and think that Sneeko is making a point are the people who think that they're the smartest people in the room.
Yeah.
When they're the dumbest.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people who walk in a room and they're like, man, they don't even know. They aren't even like on this red pill, black pill situation like I am.
Yeah.
They don't know I have almost 30K on TikTok.
For real.
Real.
Anyway, moving on in their About page, Gays Against Groomers, it goes on and it says, the activists backed by school boards, government, woke media,
backed by school boards
and corporations have been speaking on our behalf for too long. When fighting for equality, our goal was to successfully integrate ourselves into society, but now these radicals aim to restructure it entirely in order to accommodate a fringe minority, as well as to seek to indoctrinate children into their ideology.
Facts. Backed by school boards. The same school boards like the one in Davison, Michigan that banned Healing Sexual Trauma, a workbook to guide you through your journey to healing and loving yourself again.
Yeah.
Those same school boards are the one you're like, they lie. They just get on here and they fucking lie.
And I think it's a little bit revealing of their political ideology when they say our goal was to successfully integrate ourselves into society, not to make society more accepting for you and other marginalized groups, but to simply assimilate and just fit in rather than make society fit for everybody that needs to be included in it. Again, one of the most core questions to politics is who gets to be included.
Yeah, they said, I'm a straight man, however, I have a penis fetish.
Yeah, right. Like it's weird that they word it that way. And then of course they say just the nonsense that like they've been backed by the school boards, government, woke media, corporations. It's like, I don't know. I feel like the only real way to describe this, the only analysis I can really offer is that every time there's a movement for a positive movement for expanding people's rights, expanding inclusivity in our country, there's always a counter movement that pushes back against whatever the ideology of the initial movement was. Yeah. We saw it with the civil rights movement, and now I guess we're seeing it with LGBTQ rights as well. And people pushing back against it and saying like the corporations are on their side when the corporations themselves are only following what's going to get them profit, and the corporations were not on board to begin with because they didn't fucking care.
I thought you were a capitalist. I thought you were a capitalist. You should understand these things. But just something that just irks me to my fucking core, and you all should know if you've been listening for a while, is when conservatives exclude themselves from politics, exclude themselves from being politicians. Currently, the Senate is in a 50-50 deadlock, at least until next year when it could go 51-49. And we don't have the House. Republicans have the House.
Right.
We have the presidency, and that could go up in flames in 2 years with the whole fucking country.
Yeah.
You are the party that has a lot of the power right now.
Oh, yeah.
Almost half of the fucking power is in your hands, yet politicians are on their side. What the fuck are you talking about?
Right, exactly.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Especially when we have so many just reactionary school boards that are also on their side that follow the cues of the Republican narrative nationwide. Like, I don't really know what you're talking about. Like, school boards, woke corporations, woke media. Like, what is the woke media doing? Saying like, yeah, trans people exist and they're valid in their identities, and that's somehow grooming, which authorizes violence against them.
I can't fucking, it's the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
It's the buzzwords all over again. Me when I lie maliciously.
Exactly. And then they go on, there are millions of gays. This is what they're saying, not me.
Okay.
There are millions of gays within the community that want nothing to do with this alphabet religion and join the fight with parents and concerned people everywhere to protect children. We also aim to return sanity and reclaim the community we once called our own. I don't like it is just TERF ideology, right?
Yeah.
Like it's trans exclusionary radical gays, I guess. Turgs. I don't know.
Turgs.
Like that's all that this is really, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were in fact backed by some right-wing billionaire, and that's how they got all their money to do
no,
stuff.
that's absolutely what it is. It's a bunch of Dave Rubins that got in the room. They're a little more amped up.
Yeah.
And they decided to put this together.
And they also had some merch that I took a look at. Didn't buy any, of course.
Oh, for real? Is it gas?
No. Oh, well, I mean, probably to them and
Is it
probably to the
gas?
right wing. They have like T-shirts and hats and stuff that say things like "D-trans voices matter." They have one that said "Okay, groomer." They had one that said "Save the tomboys."
That's explicitly TERF. Well, Turg.
It's explicitly trans exclusionary, but I also can't save the. I don't like. Are you saying that like all tomboys transition to being men? Is that the argument?
It's a TERF talking point, because I've seen a lot of TERFs on TikTok get on there and say like, "Oh, people can't just be tomboys anymore. You just can't be a flamboyant man or a feminine man anymore. You have to be gay or you have to be lesbian, or if you're a tomboy, that means you have to transition." No, but like, it doesn't.
Why though? Like who says this?
No one. It's because they're making it up. They're
lying.
Okay. Like it's because the TERFs and the Turgs are lying.
Because like the left wing response here is like we don't care. Do whatever the fuck you want.
My response is I don't fucking care. Be a tomboy. If that's not good enough for you, fucking transition.
Do whatever you want.
You do you.
Right. Like there might be some like weird liberals that you can find that are like, well, you dress like a man. Are you sure that you don't identify as a man? Like you're gonna find people that can do that.
Yeah.
But in a country of 350 million people, you can find anyone that's gonna say anything to you.
No, literally. And that's all that these conservatives have. That's all these TERFs and Turgs. Turg's a real term. We're coining this right now. It's gonna blow up.
Well,
this is what's gonna blow us up.
It's gonna become more common.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Like where else does the culture war go now? That the right wing, they can't explicitly exclude groups like the LGBTQ anymore. Like they have to have them as a part of their media narrative, and just like they have to have people like Ben Shapiro, right? Yeah. They have to have certain people that can be spokespersons from other communities that will say that, oh, well, the right wing isn't homophobic, they're not transphobic, they're just against, insert whatever it is that they're mad about now.
And they just won't let me attend the Texas GOP convention by virtue of me being gay.
Exactly.
However, I am a trans exclusionary radical gay.
Yeah, no, Turg is definitely, it's going to become a much bigger thing, and we're going to be the main front against it.
That's right.
We're going to be the main front against it. But yeah, I mean, they had some wild merch out there. The OK Groomer is just wild.
That's so funny.
Like I can't tell if they're doing a grift. Well, they're certainly doing a grift. But I can't tell if it's like a scam or they're just trying to make money off of like trans people being murdered or how, like I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
But it's definitely a grift, and I guess we'll see where they go from here.
Morally abhorrent bag chasing.
Yeah, well, definitely. Maybe that's the title of the episode. And you may be saying, before we move on from this, you may be saying like, isn't this all like bad politics for the GOP? Because we saw in 2022 in the elections that the GOP, they didn't do as good as they did, or as good as they were hoping to do. And of course, it was overdetermined. There's tons of factors that contribute to the GOP doing poorly. But one of those had to have been a rebuke of the trans narrative, the trans groomer narrative that they were trying to push. And that might be the case, but I also think that they're going to continue to push it because either they're stupid. Yeah. And they just believe bad things and they're bad people, or two, they soon believe that electoral politics isn't going to stop them from getting into power because we have things like Moore v. Harper coming up, and we have other Supreme Court cases that might make it really easy for them to just seize power and believe whatever they want. And again, not need the people that they're using as spokespeople anymore.
It's going to be a real interesting couple weeks when the this session of court cases starts dropping.
Yeah. It's
going to be some banger episodes. Possibly
for democracy, not good
for democracy.
Yeah.
No, that's insane. You also have the fact that just if they're atomizing this issue down to trans people right now and hyper focusing on trans people don't make up 50% of the country like women do.
Yeah.
When abortion was 70% popular, but eventually you're going to run out of people who live in middle America flyover states that are 30 miles from anything fun. And you're going to get into people in cities, people in areas where they know gay people and they know trans people and they know them not to be like this.
Yeah. I mean, and because the right wing, they have to find a way to be hateful towards people without excluding so many people that they can't win electorally anymore. You know what I mean? Like and I think that's what they did with abortion was they overcommitted. It's a big
mistake that they made, thank God.
Like, they have to be hateful. They have to try to take away rights because that's the entire reason for their existence, right? Like their entire existence is based off fear and taking people's rights away and trying to go backwards. It's literally in the name conservative. You want to go back to tradition or conserve what currently exists or bring back what used to exist. So they have to do this, but they have to find a way to appeal to people that think similarly or that are susceptible to thinking similarly without biting off too much where they, you know, seem too hateful, overly bigoted, that kind of thing. It seems like they weren't able to find that balance, and I hope to God they're not able to find that balance or just get rid of electoral politics in general and seize power anyways.
Big facts.
Yeah.
Big facts.
And you may have thought, you know, this closes out our section on the Colorado Springs shooting. You may have think, okay, so we're moving on, no more shootings, right?
No more mass shootings in America, right?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I think about 2 weeks ago at this point in Virginia, there were 2 shootings. One was at a Walmart that was more recent, and then one was at the University of Virginia. At the University of Virginia, 3 student athletes were killed, and at Walmart, 6 people were killed and several more were injured. Specifically for the Walmart one, the shooter had just bought a gun, literally the same day.
The day of.
Yeah, and he left a death note where he wrote paragraphs and paragraphs complaining about his work and his coworkers and how he's isolated and how people are treating him. Just some really awful stuff. And while this one isn't explicitly, you know, bigoted or loaded up with hate towards a certain marginalized group, I think it certainly speaks to like socialism, or not socialism, but social Freudian slip, social isolation and alienation that just drives people insane. And I think it's like this one specifically is a symptom of capitalism and how it just right now, especially, is just ripping people apart at the seams, pushing people towards being more and more violent because, you know, they hate their work and they hate the social arrangement, but they don't know who to blame it on, and they don't know like where political power really lies.
And
so
they feel
just
powerless to change anything. So they take power into their own hands in the only way that they know they can.
And well, exactly, because guns are so accessible in this country, and the only way that you can really affect, in their mind at least, the only way that you can really affect change in your community is by doing something fucking insane.
Yeah.
And when, you know, I didn't read what this dude wrote because I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with that. And I don't think any of you should have to either. But obviously it seems like this dude was, you know, pissed off about his work environment, pissed off about how he was treated. And that's not to say that like he is somehow free of blame. Obviously, like this is his fault. He did a horrible thing. But it's just symptomatic of a larger problem that people are being absolutely shredded to pieces by the economy, and no one really does anything about it. And then we get surprised when people get pushed so far to the edge and have horrible mental issues that are never resolved.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
And again, just speaks to he went and got the gun the day of.
Yeah.
I feel like you shouldn't just be able to walk in anywhere and buy a gun.
Yeah.
And I'm for getting strapped. I'm for staying strapped up, just doing all that. However, I don't think you should be able to get strapped up in a day. Go through the whole entire process of buying a gun in one singular day, less than one day. Yeah, in hours.
The thing is, like he didn't have a criminal rap sheet or anything, right? Like he wouldn't have shown up negative on her, or there would have been no red flags that popped up with a background check for him. So yeah, like the only way to do that is make it so people can't buy guns immediately.
Exactly. Make it so you got to wait like 2 weeks.
Same thing might have happened if you got it 2 weeks later, but at least at that point, like we are, I don't know, maybe cutting off some cases of mass shootings.
At least you're stopping people who are doing it just heat of the moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I feel like there are no net negatives that can come from a system where you got to wait 2 weeks or like a month or something.
And back to what you were saying about like how you're in support of people being strapped up. At this point, like if you are an LGBTQ person, I feel like the only solution,
get a strap.
Like if you are anyone from a marginalized group, or really if you're just like on the left wing in general, like so like you have to have to find a way to defend yourself, because the wave of hate just keeps growing and it keeps getting a lot more scary. And I'm not saying to go out and do violence, of course.
Oh, absolutely not.
But you gotta, I don't know, find a way to defend yourself.
And I'm not even saying you're gonna be a good guy with a gun.
Yeah.
However, I am saying that you might want to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You might want to go and take classes, get your CCW permit if you're in a state that requires a CCW permit. If you're not in a state that requires a CCW permit, still go to a couple gun safety classes and learn how to shoot and do things so you're not at risk to people around you and yourself. And do what you need to do to be protected.
Obviously, if you feel like you're not mentally well enough to have a weapon or something like that, then don't go and do it. But like if you're in a position to do so and you'll be responsible with it, then like I don't know what else to suggest, because it doesn't seem like lawmakers are going to be offering any help. Police historically have not sided with marginalized groups, although they did a decent job with the Colorado Springs stuff. But I don't know. I mean, it's a scary time we're living in, and it doesn't seem like anyone's going to stop the movement at its birth to erase marginalized groups in general from society.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
Speaking of erasing marginalized groups from society, though, we got to talk about Nazis.
Honestly, some beyond parody type of shit here.
Yeah, this one should be classified as beyond parody because last week, before Thanksgiving, I think Wednesday, Trump met with, he got a call from Ye. From Ye West.
Ye just called him up.
Ye called him up about having dinner.
He made graduation.
And so West, he came over to Mar-a-Lago, and he brought along with him a known neo-Nazi, Nick Fuentes.
Oh, yeah, just his good buddy, Nick Fuentes, who isn't Nick Fuentes going to be his campaign manager for Ye's new presidential campaign?
Yeah, I got this in here.
Okay.
We'll get there in just a second.
All right, my bad.
But Trump ended up having dinner with a Nazi, or I guess two Nazis, if you consider Kanye to be a Nazi at this point.
Yeah.
And of course, amidst a wave of the new wave of anti-Semitism, Trump was having dinner with Nazis, and reports, of course, say that Trump didn't know who Nick Fuentes was, and only that Kanye brought him with him. Trump released a statement basically saying, like, Kanye came to me for help, because if you don't know, Kanye just announced his presidential bid for 2024. Yes. But he said Kanye came over looking for help. I told him not to run and to support me, Donald Trump, and he,
which of course he did.
He's saying Kanye didn't do anything anti-Semitic. He's a great guy, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, Trump had dinner with an actual, like, Nick Fuentes is just a Nazi.
He's literally a Nazi.
Like he admits it.
Exactly. He self-identifies as a Nazi. It does not get worse. Like, no, it's not ambiguous.
Like, no room for interpretation.
I'm struggling to find the words.
There's no mask that he can take off to show us. Like, the mask, there's no mask. He's just plainly a Nazi.
His skin is bare.
Yeah. He is just plainly a Nazi. He's been doing the right-wing grift for a while, banned from, like, every social media platform on the planet.
He's the guy who went to CPAC and said that he was actually going to give the most racist, most misogynistic, most anti-Semitic speech that you've ever heard, and he wasn't kidding. Yeah. And he was not kidding. And if that's not enough to irk you, what should be enough to make you just be deeply annoyed by his person and hate him is the fact that I feel like his voice constantly sounds like someone who's trying to do a Heath Ledger Joker impression. Mm-hmm. And that's what does it for me.
Yeah, he's not great. He's not great. And of course, like I said, Trump said he didn't know who Nick Fuentes was. He just came along with Kanye West. I don't believe
There's no fucking way.
I don't believe it. Like, Trump might not know every media personality, of course, especially the fringe ones. Yeah. But I feel like, does his team not vet the people that come and meet him?
There is no way that Kanye West could have just showed up with Nick Fuentes and people were like, who the fuck is this?
Right.
Like what's going on?
Trump has secret security still with him.
He will forever have Secret Service with him.
He has people that work for him. And I know Mar-a-Lago is more than just the home that he lives at. Like, it's a resort and everything. Like, more people than him can come to it.
Yeah.
But, like, he's a former president. He has secret security with him. They gotta vet people that are coming in and interacting with him.
Secret Service is like fucking annoying. I think I remember hearing an interview with Obama where Obama talked about how he likes to go play like pickup basketball games.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he can't do that anymore because of the Secret Service detail that's always with him.
Right.
Like, he just there's no way you can just have anyone pull up to you.
Exactly.
Like, I'm pretty sure George Bush also talked about that. He talked about while he was president, you're not allowed to drive anymore on roads. You have to have Secret Service drive with you. So on his property, he's got like roads that he can just drive on for fun.
Yeah, no, it's like I don't like. There's no way that Nick Fuentes just pulled up alongside Kanye West and they just let him in without Trump ever knowing who he was.
Yeah,
there's simply no way.
Yeah,
I don't believe it.
No, it's just like in 2020 when he did that thing with Savannah Guthrie instead of the second presidential debate.
Yeah.
And he said that he didn't know who QAnon was.
Right.
There's no fucking way that Trump did not know what QAnon was.
You're president of the United States.
You are briefed on these things.
QAnon is a growing conspiracy that puts you at the literal center of it.
It's a popular cult that worships you.
You know about them as the president of the United States. Like, come on now.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
And of course, as I mentioned, Kanye announced that he's running for 2024.
Yes.
He's running as president. I don't think that he's like a part of a party right now. I just think he said it.
He started the birthday party.
Wasn't that last time around?
Yeah, but I think that's like his party or whatever.
Well, Kanye is running in 2024 apparently. Nick Fuentes is an advisor to his campaign, and Milo Yiannopoulos is the campaign manager. You know Milo?
I know Milo.
Milo is he's another right-wing grifter. He's currently either chief of staff or just working for Marjorie Taylor Greene's campaign staff,
something like that.
And I think he's advocated like openly for pedophilia.
Yes.
For like that, all that kind of stuff.
Literally, he's pro pedophilia. He talked about how when he was a young boy, trigger warning, he talked about an experience where he described being molested by an older man when he was a young boy and said that experience was beneficial to him because he like enjoyed it. It's
crazy.
Like, dog, you're a child, you cannot consent.
Yeah.
You cannot fucking consent. Please don't be pro-pedophilia.
Yeah. So Milo Yiannopoulos, pro-pedophilia. Also, I'm pretty sure he did like the D-gay grift.
Yeah.
Where he like came out as gay and then now he's saying he's not gay anymore and he like found God or something like that. It's something along, I don't know. I don't have the receipts. It's something along those lines of like he was gay then stopped being gay. So he's done that kind of grift too.
Hasn't he been on Joe Rogan a couple times?
I think so.
Like talked about this stuff.
I think so.
He's an awful human being.
So Ye is doing the like obviously right now Ye is, I wouldn't consider him a mainstream figure, although he did get a interview with Tucker Carlson a couple of weeks ago.
True.
So I don't know, maybe his views are mainstream.
This might be conjecture, but isn't Milo Yiannopoulos also a Nazi?
Probably. I mean, the ideologies seem pretty close, parallel to each other.
I feel like we can't rule it out.
Yeah.
At the very least, we can't rule it out.
I mean, isn't that where all of this leads? Like, isn't it just Nazism up and down?
Come on, Kanye. You're campaigning with Nick Fuentes.
Right.
You're campaigning with Nick Fuentes.
I feel like at this point, like, you know, Trump may say that he didn't know Nick Fuentes, and Kanye obviously knows Nick Fuentes, has him as an advisor, but I feel like at this point, all roads lead to Nazism.
Yeah.
Like, is there really, and once we go down that road, is there really going back from it? Like, once we open the can of being just, you know, actually having Nazis in the mainstream, I don't know that we can, I mean, like Tucker Carlson's been doing the great replacement grift for months now, maybe even years now, saying that, like, white people are being replaced by immigrants, explicitly, unambiguously Nazi rhetoric.
Yeah.
Victim blaming when there's a mass shooting or the killing of marginalized groups. Unambiguously Nazi rhetoric. When do we just start calling them Nazis?
Good thing I'm a real American and think Nazis are bad.
Yeah.
Conservatives always talk about being the true patriots. No, I'm the true patriot.
Yeah.
I am the one that loves this country because I think Nazis are bad.
I'm a red-blooded American.
That's right, baby. I bleed red, white, and blue.
I hate Nazis. I would punch a Nazi if I had to.
I would punch a Nazi. If you put Nick Fuentes in front of me,
yeah.
Redacted.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of the show.
Kind of. I did want to go over, in vain with talking about Ben Shapiro and how he's positioning himself, I do want to talk about the Ben Shapiro tweet because I thought it was very interesting. Ben Shapiro tweeted, "A good way not to accidentally dine with a vile racist and anti-Semite you don't know is to not dine with a vile racist and anti-Semite you do know." And he's talking about the Trump thing. And I feel like that's really interesting that he's now finally coming out like against the Nick Fuentes stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he ever has before. Even when Nick Fuentes was speaking at CPAC, I don't think Ben Shapiro has ever like taken a principled stance against like anti-Semitic figures on the right.
Yeah.
And I also think it's funny that he's calling Kanye a vile racist because I feel like he's talking about anti-white racism.
And yeah. And the interesting thing there is like, okay, you're saying Nick Fuentes is like an anti-Semite. You're denouncing him, I guess, subtweeting him basically. Yeah. But like if you disagree with him on the anti-Semitic stuff, of course. But if you agree with him on functionally like 90% of everything else he says, like where does that put you ideologically? You know what I mean?
And if you're going to support candidates that also like have a deep connection with Nick Fuentes, like Marjorie Taylor Greene does fundraising stuff with Nick Fuentes, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because she like went to that event with him.
His event, like the event that he ran, the Nazi event Marjorie Taylor Greene went to, and Ben Shapiro like supported that. Like,
well, I don't know if he came out and supported that, but like,
but
yes,
he hasn't
went to
condemned Marjorie Taylor Greene for it. When it's like this is functionally a Nazi rally,
right?
Come on,
and you'll have, I can't remember her name, but that one woman, Mary Miller from Illinois, who just basically like literally said like Hitler was right about one thing in her speech when Donald Trump was trying to steal the election. Like these are mainstream figures in the Republican Party that have seats of power, some of the most powerful positions in the government. You know, House of Representatives, actual representatives, and like what are you doing to weed those out of your party? And the point here is that you can't. Because the hate goes with hate, as we talked about before. Like, how do you separate the logical issues with racism from the logical issues with anti-Semitism? They're both illogical. They're both illogical belief systems.
One is not more illogical than the other. There's not like a level of logic where you're like, yeah, I'm homophobic but not anti-Semitic. That's too far.
Right.
There's not. There's simply not. For your target audience, there's no separation between the two.
Like to say that black people are inherently more violent than white people is just as illogical as saying that, you know, Jewish people control the world.
Or it plays on the same faulty lines of thinking that you would need to believe either of those things.
It's crazy.
But even with this tweet, I wanted to highlight two of my favorite replies to
good.
Ben Shapiro's tweet.
Okay.
Ben Shapiro's tweet coming out against anti-Semitism, kind of, even though he didn't name Nick Fuentes, even though he didn't really tread on any toes.
I'm proud of him. It's a hard take.
I'm proud of it. A hard stance to take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a soldier.
Politically unpopular for his crowd.
I'm functionally in the trenches doing this every week.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's brave. Brave of him.
Yeah, but one of these replies was, guilty by association from a single encounter? You're a lawyer. Have your morals been compromised or attention, wealth, or acceptance?
What the hell?
Yeah. He's like, wow, are you accusing Trump of being a Nazi because he's dining with Nazis?
Why do they always come out and they're like, wow, you can really be guilty by association? Yeah.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. If you're friends with Nazis,
I
like, don't know what that says about you.
If you associate yourself with Nazis, if you're friends with Nazis, if you share similar beliefs to Nazis, at what point do we call you a Nazi?
If you quite literally break bread with Nazis.
Actually, like if you're constantly dining with the enemy and then you come out and say like, oh, well, I don't actually know him, and then someone calls you out on that bullshit, someone from your own party, own ideology, then like, yes, guilty by association.
I saw it. I gotta look at you guys for this one. I saw another reply saying, isn't that also what Jesus Christ did? People were saying the same things about Jesus Christ.
Stop. No, stop. I can't do it, bro. They always just like, anytime they don't know what to say, it's just, well, what about Jesus?
Guys, Jesus Christ dining with criminals who he recognized were marginalized figures in society and doing these bad things, sinning in this way because of their position within society is the same as Donald Trump eating with Nazis.
Bro, they should recreate the Last Supper photo with Donald Trump in the middle.
Oh my God, Donald Trump, Nick Fuentes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kanye.
And it's just like, yeah, you can have like all those figures in there, and then like far on the right, like Hitler's in the background.
Yeah.
And then far on the left, they put like, I don't know, Stalin in the background or something. And then, like, this is Donald Trump.
Mussolini, because he was a socialist.
Right. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
The great unifier.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last reply that really stood out to me was this one. What's wrong with conversing with people who hold different views from you, even if they're abhorrent ones? It's not an endorsement. Trump stated that he didn't know who he was, nor that he was attending. Should Daryl Davis not have met with KKK members?
Here's the thing.
Do you know who Daryl Davis is?
I don't.
He's a black guy he's a black man who would go to KKK meetings to attempt to like convert people from the KKK into saying that, look, black people aren't bad, which is not comparable to what Trump did.
I was going to say, he didn't share any of the beliefs with those people, I would bet.
Yeah, no, literally.
And Donald Trump is a right-wing candidate for president of the United States.
Nazi is not an immutable characteristic.
Yeah.
There are no good Nazis. Hot take.
The problem with that line of thinking, not only that it's like super ignorant, but also is that not every idea, not every belief system deserves as much seriousness and consideration as others do.
Real.
You don't get to, yes, anyone can believe whatever they want, but if you believe that black people are evil and that Jewish people run the world, you do not deserve as much seriousness as my ideology that wants free healthcare.
Facts.
I don't know how they don't understand.
Literally.
Not every belief system
is equal. Not every idea is equal.
Right.
You know what? There are bad questions.
Not every voice deserves to be heard if that voice is openly hateful on purpose.
There are bad questions, notably the Jewish one.
Right, that'd be like Joe Biden saying, well, this is literally what they did, is they're like, wow, Joe Biden wants to unite the entire country, but he's saying that if we're racist, we don't get to unite, we're not real Americans?
Wow.
Yes.
But yet he's calling us racist?
Because, like, you can't unite. You can't have real political discourse with people that want to eliminate others from the realm of political discourse.
It's just, I love it. I love it. It's like the motherfucker that typed that thinks that he's smart.
So
smart,
bro.
Like, he thinks that he's an intellectual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Holy shit! Like I can't fathom it.
He thinks he popped off with that one.
He does. He does.
He's sitting at home after he launched that with his Twitter fingers, thinking like, "Why isn't this getting more likes?" Like,
he's
this
going
is hard.
home to the wife that does not love him, to his loveless marriage.
Yeah.
Like, honey, I tweeted a banger today.
What's wrong with talking with people you disagree with?
Honey, I'm a poster.
Yeah.
I'm really I'm enlightening these right wing media types.
And it's like there's tons of like leftist streamers and content creators that all the time debate like Nazis, for example.
Yeah.
But the point of those debates is that they are explicitly condemning and showing the ignorance of Nazi arguments.
Exactly.
They're explicitly coming out and saying like, no, this is fucking stupid and here's why. You can make an argument, like you can make a decent argument that like, well, they shouldn't be given the platform at all. Sure. But as long as these ideologies exist, it's good to dispel whatever they're thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's completely different for you to be a candidate for the United States and then meet with someone who's known to be an anti-Semite at this point, Kanye West, and then also to have Nick Fuentes over and to basically say nothing about this guy. Like, I know they were not having a debate. Like, I know Trump was not out there defending the Jewish community.
I know. I know Trump wasn't like, Kanye, I understand you made graduation, but you said a lot of fucked up things about the Jewish community.
He's not saying that. If
Kanye,
anything, Trump's like, I agree. That's crazy, dog.
He's going there. Kanye, I was really fucked up. They kicked you out of the bank. You know who runs those?
Yeah, literally. Like, Adidas cut you off from that deal. I bet I know who it was.
I bet I know who owns them. Yeah. We can't say that, though.
Yeah, no. It's the same thing when Kanye is like, certain doctors gave me this medicine. I can't say who. I can't say who. They'll get mad at me. It was Jewish doctors.
Oh, my God.
Crazy. That is insane. I love the Jesus takes.
The Jesus take is the best take.
That one's
honestly.
gas.
Donald Trump is just like Jesus Christ.
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. But you know who's really like Jesus Christ?
Our beautiful, beautiful patrons.
Beautiful, wonderful, holy patrons.
Are the patrons that make this show possible. If you want to be heavenly, if you want to be godlike in your audience, in your listenership to this show, consider becoming a patron. At patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's all in the description. You can get after it, become a patron, get access to early episodes, just like these beautiful people that we got to give a special thanks to right now. So special thanks to Cricket Scrapbook Layouts, Nikki Nine Lives, Caden Kraut, Lord T, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Talia Katz, 40% Spite, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Maddie S.T., The B-Plot, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Sarah McRoberts, Derek Messina, Dylan B, The Mind Sculptors, Kaz, Caleb Joy, Jim Bobs, Carl D, Rich Toro, Tari, Gav Meyer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vasquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Bread, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, and my mom. Thank you all for supporting the show on Patreon. You're so meaningful to us. You are literally perfect. You're the perfect specimen.
When you hit that Carl D. Restoro Atari, that shit was kind of like the LMNOP alphabet. That shit flowed.
And what can I say? Our beautiful patrons, they just they make the world go round.
They honestly do. They keep the lights on in the stew.
Quite literally.
So
thank you all for listening to the episode. Consider becoming a patron, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great week.